This is the video review for Transformers Prime Robots in Disguise Revealer Class RC. An RC is a really nice little bike. Now, I will not be showing off a comparison between this RC and the vehicle mode of the first edition RC, because I only have one first edition RC, and it's the New York Comic-Con exclusive RC, so it's the pink RC, so you're not going to get a good comparison on the colors. Like, this blue here is a somewhat brighter color than on the first edition RC, but I can't show you that. As far as the difference in how the bikes look, they basically look the exact same. The differences are very, very slight. These are a little bit longer, the arms don't extend as far back, and I mean, that's about it. They look almost exactly the same, and they are so close in size. I mean, this one I think is maybe a little bit smaller, but for the most part, they are almost identical in vehicle mode. It's kind of neat, actually, how differently they both transform and how different the robot modes look. But it's just really interesting that they have the same vehicle mode, almost exactly, and they're so different. I will be showing a comparison with between the two RCs I have in robot mode, though, because that's where the big differences are, and that's where this one really, really outshines a first edition figure. So, she has a kickstand, she rolls pretty easily, and the one complaint I have about her in vehicle mode, and this is something that is for the most part present on the first edition RC, but not quite as bad. What it is that I cannot figure out how any human could sit on that seat. His legs would have to be splayed out like this, which is kind of ridiculous. And the only reason why this isn't as big of a problem on the first edition RC is because the arms and these wing bits here don't extend that far back. And RC does come with a big gun and a big sword. They come apart, well, arm blade actually. They come apart, and in this mode, the gun can peg onto the side here, and this gun is just way too oversized for her no matter what mode you're in. So while it's a nice gun, and I'm glad to have it, I can give it to some other figures, like this would be a decent gun to give to a Voyager Optimus Prime. It doesn't really suit RC that well. And this blade has the same basic problem that the blades on the first edition RC had, that they were too big and then extend far enough forward. Same basic problem, except it's a little bit smaller and you only get one, so I really have no use for this blade. Now, Transform RC is very, very neat. I really like her transformation. To do this, you will pull out these wings. You will pull back this section here with the front, the windshield. You'll pull back the wheel. You'll rotate it to the side. And when you're rotating this, make sure you're pressing into the joint, because while this won't just come out on its own very easily, when you're turning it, it will twist out. So push this as far back onto the windscreen as you can, and just kind of leave this out here for now. It'll end up getting closer to the body later, but we need to do a little automorph thing in here. Now, one thing that I want to point out that I think is kind of interesting is that this stuff here, this kibble, after it folds away, RC basically is in the fetal position when she's in vehicle mode. I'm curious, is that because her partners always die? Oh, yes, I just said that. Now, anyway, to continue transforming her, you will extend her legs down. You will come down, and you will split this wheel here, like this. And then you will come in here, fold this forward, and fold the wheel back. Fold this forward, and fold the wheel back. Kind of a similar transformation to what happens to the first edition RC's legs, but a whole lot more simple and less of a pain, and I think quite a bit more solid too. At least as long as this joint right here remains tight, this will be a solid connection. On the first edition RC, there were like 2 or 3 joints that need to remain tight for the foot remains solid, so I like this foot transformation a lot better. And then you'll pull the arms out, they're tabbed in right here, and then click them down. Pull them out and click them down. And then rotate the forearms forward and the hands to the side. Forearms forward, hands to the side. Next, what you want to do is, you see how her pelvis is sort of facing forward and her head is in her chest? You will bend this down, which will fold the kibble down a little bit more, and it will raise up her head and fill in the chest here. And then it'll click into place. Make sure that's as flat as it will go, and adjust the wings to your liking. I like them spread out a little bit. I think it looks kind of neat that way. And then get her all posed up, and this is Arcee in robot mode. And I think she looks really nice. She has a really nice head sculpt, although I wish that these things around her face here were painted gold like in the show. I can't remember if this is painted gold or silver in the show. It doesn't really matter. It's a fairly decent head sculpt, and her light piping is really nice. Look at that. That is really cool. For Poseability, her arms will rotate 360, except that they'll bump into the wings here. They will go out a little bit, just a little bit, although if you need them to go out more, you can use this hinge in here. Her arms in the shoulder are a little bit limited, but it's not too bad. There's not much you can do to work around it, but it will give you most positions that you might want. Her elbow is pretty free. It's a ball joint, rotates around 360, and gets over 90 degrees of a bend. And then her wrists are ball jointed, which is really nice. The only thing that I don't like about how her wrists are ball jointed is I wish that the ball joint faced the other way. For two reasons. One, seeing the ball joint there is a little bit ugly, and for two, if the wrist bent down, she could hold swords really well. Her head, unfortunately her head is slightly limited because like most of the, maybe all of them, I don't know, I'd have to check to confirm this, but most of the revealer figures, the Robots in Disguise revealer figures, the ball joint is on the neck staff, on the neck stock, not the other way around. It's not a neck stock with a ball joint that the head pegs onto. The ball joint is attached to the head and plugs into the body. So, because of that, the axis for where her neck bends is deep in her chest, and it means that she can't make her head look more up than this, which is a shame because the way her head is shaped, it makes her look like she's looking down just a little bit too much. Otherwise, her head is quite free. It can rotate around 360. It'll bump into a couple things, but it's not too big of a deal, especially since I don't expect her to be doing an exorcist pose anytime soon. And she can look a fair ways down, which is pretty nice. It's decent head articulation. Legs go forward, back, out, rotate above the knee, and get quite a bit, well, no, not quite, about 90 degrees out of the knee. I was thinking that because for transformation, the thigh ends up in her leg. It would be more, but I wasn't thinking about the wheel. And then for the foot, there's not really anything, a little bit of wiggle maybe. One thing I really like about her sculpt are these little holes right here. I don't know why, they're just sort of neat. And of course the elephant in her room is that she does have a somewhat significant backpack. It's not too horrible. I mean, it certainly can mess up her balance, but her heels are big enough that it's not that big of a deal. What I find more objectionable is this right here. Not because it's really that bad. I mean, it fits with the design, and where else are they going to put it? But it hinders legs going back. So I wish that it were hinged to go back just a little bit. That would get it out of the way and potentially look a little bit nicer. At least having the ability to pose it might make it look a little bit nicer, because sometimes it doesn't quite look right. And in this mode, you can use her gun. You can put it in her hand, and either put it in here, which will make it look like it's like her hand transformed into the gun, or you can peg it onto the back of her arm here. Although I find the peg is a little bit too big to actually do that for some reason. So this gun, a bit too big for her. This weapon here, that's just silly. I would never use a blade like that. I'd have to extend far further. And it looks silly in her hand, too. And I believe you saw this when I was doing at the very beginning of the review, but this can act as a bayonet. This gun here, I think, is far better suited for another figure, a larger figure. But yeah, this Arcee, I really like her. She is a really nice figure. Now let me bring in the New York Comic-Con exclusive Arcee, just so you can see exactly what the differences are in robot mode. For one, the Comic-Con Arcee is significantly taller, about a good couple centimeters. The body and frame are all bigger, and strangely enough, she has just about as much kibble as Robots in Disguise Arcee. In fact, I think Robots in Disguise Arcee deals with it a little bit better. It kind of sits onto her back in a slightly more natural way. Like here, just sort of, maybe it's just the wings, but I think it looks a little bit better. Here, the wheels hanging off, then you have this hanging off, and then you got these hanging off, and this, and it just looks, maybe it's just that it looks kind of messy. It's more compact on Pink Sea, but it's messy. I mean, that's really the problem with the first edition Arcee. How she deals with a lot of her bike kibble, the front half of the bike, it's just messy. These are on the arms, they get in the way, and yeah, this figure, while it's nice in concept and execution, it just has a lot wrong with it. A lot of the things which are fixed by this figure, although this figure is missing a couple things like a waist rotation, the improvements this figure gives to the to Arcee as a transforming toy character, they're just really good. She's a really nice figure. I really recommend her. One thing to watch out for, though, is I have heard reports of these silver knee cap things here being missing on a couple figures, because apparently they're just glued in, so there is a possibility of factory errors where these are missing, so do check those in the box before you buy the figure. Thank you for watching.